I love my guys Motley, but when that shit's everywhere, on stage and your bass is piped in, that kind of stuff kind of eats me.
This is the Boulder Zone, the fusion of masculine advice and entertainment.
This is Sparta!
Here's your host, Marco Boulder.
Hello again, my fellow interwebbers. Welcome back to the Boulder Zone. If you're a hard rock fan, you probably know that speculation has been swirling around Mötley Crüe throughout the last year's stadium tour and has continued since Mick Mars left the band and was replaced by guitarist John Five. The latest dust-up began when Carmine Appice, who's well known for his work with Vanilla Fudge, Beck, and Ozzy Osbourne, reflected on his longtime friendship with Crüe guitarist Mick Mars. In a recent interview with Andrew Daly from Ultimate Guitar magazine, Appice shared the details behind Mars' departure and displeasure with the band. Let's dive into the latest drama from where it began, the interview. Here it is in its entirety.
What are your thoughts on his departure from Mötley Crüe?
Well, I tell you what, I've been talking to Mick, and he told me, when I was on the stadium tour, I was not happy. Basically, everything was on tape, it was all planned out and ultimately a lot of crap. And Mick is a pretty good player, and so, to now let him loose and play the way he wants, that was never going to work for him. The truth is that everything has been weird for a while with Mötley Crüe, and Mick didn't like that everything was on tape. Mick told me that people that came to see it could tell that it was all pre-recorded and that everything was on tape. When you play in a stadium like that, you can hear a lot of things come to the monitors or what doesn't. And with Vince's vocals, bass, drums, guitars, and all the other stuff, it was obvious that it was all on tape. And Mick was pissed off and said, I can play these things. I want to play them. I don't want to make believe I'm playing them. So, I think that's one of the reasons why he said, I'm done. Sure, the disease that he has doesn't help, and it doesn't make life easy on tour, but Mick can play all the licks, and he was allowed to.
So, Mick wasn't getting along with the rest of the band?
No, he wasn't. He had his own means of travel and would travel alone on a bus while the other guys flew everywhere. He said, man, these guys are pissing their money away, flying to every gig. They were all busy still trying to be rock stars, and Mick just wanted to play the music. Mick wasn't interested in wasting time and money flying everywhere, so he traveled by bus. Their lifestyles are different than his, and so there were a lot of disagreements. I think he was just done. They were supposed to have done their last tour, and then they came back. Then they did the stadium tour, and that was apparently supposed to be the last. So, when they came back again, he said, you can do it. I'm not going out with you for this.
What are your thoughts on John Five? Do you feel he's a proper replacement?
He's a good player, but if they're on tape, it doesn't matter. It's sad because when Mötley Crüe first went out with Ozzy, they were smoking. I lived out in LA, and I'd see them perform on the Strip. They'd walk in with their makeup, and they looked like the New York Dolls. A lot of people said, they'll never make it, that look is over. But a year later, they blew up and did it all themselves. They put their posters all over town, and they were selling out arenas quickly. Then they got a record deal with Tom Werman producing, and that's when Ozzy caught wind of them and asked them to open for us. At that point, they were really good.
So, you were friendly with Mötley. Then?
I got to be friends with them all, and I used to hang out with Tommy and Nikki all the time. They lived around the corner from where I lived, and we'd go to breakfast all the time. And I used to go to Tommy's house with him when he was with Heather, we were good friends too. I had a red Ford Pantera, and that's why Vince got on, which is the car he crashed and killed Hanoi Rock's drummer in. So yeah, I was good friends with all of them. I remember that when they did their second record, I lent them a bass drum of mine, which they used on the album. I went down to the studio while they were recording, and I realized that the bass sound that Tom Werman was getting was not that great, so I stepped in and lent them mine. In the end, it sounded great. I stayed in touch, but then, as they got bigger and bigger, things changed. But again, all of Tommy's tricks that he does, a lot of that came from me. He credited me for that, and I respect him for it. He became a good drummer. I watched him grow, and I watched him get huge. So, it's sad that we're not in touch anymore.
For a fan's perspective, I've invited a lifelong rock and roll fan and subscriber to the Boulder Zone, Jeffrey Bussey, to join me today. How you doing today, Jeff?
Pretty good, Marco. How are you doing?
Man, I'm doing great. I'm doing great. Thanks for coming on the Boulder Zone today, buddy. Hey, Jeff, what do you think about Mick Mars' comments to Carmine Appice in that interview about Mötley Crüe having everything on tape?
One of those things where I think that, more bands are doing it, even though they may say they don't. I don't know if he really wanted to be on the tour, considering, where I've seen other comments as far as, hey, we're done. And then all of a sudden, 4 years later, it's like, yeah, let's go back out on tour. So,
Yeah, there was a lot of controversy, as you probably remember, being a Mötley Crüe fan like I
yeah.
am, about them and their farewell tour a few years ago. And a lot of fans were outraged that they came back, they broke that contract, and they started again.
Yeah.
I think it's about the money more than
Oh, yeah.
anything else. So tell me, how long have you been a Mötley Crüe fan?
Well, I got introduced back in mid 80s. Girls, Girls, Girls was the first album that I got of theirs. And when I got to Okinawa, a friend of mine introduced me to their earlier stuff and been a fan since then.
Let's go ahead and take a look at the tweets that turned this interview into a dumpster fire. It all began with Nikki Sixx posting about the interview. Love how people talk for us without talking to us. This is why the media has lost credibility. Obviously, by printing bullshit, they make money off of advertising, and we're not into the clickbait game. When the truth comes out, it will be from us. In a response to a fan's tweet about the interview with Carmine, a few hours later, Nikki later wrote, "A washed-up drummer trying to speak for us and bottom-feeder media running with it to make money off of lies? Welcome to the sad new world of look at me, look at me. Up next for us, a stadium tour in Europe, Australia, Japan, etc." When Carmine Appice got wind of Sixx's remarks, he responded with a tweet of his own. "At least this washed-up drummer can play his instrument well, who has pioneered heavy rock drumming and can educate others around the world on his instrument." I can't help to wonder if Mars thought this conversation with Appice was as friends and confidence, or if he didn't give a shit if Appice shared it with the press. But this Twitter battle, Jesus, it certainly is not the first time that Sixx has flown off the handle in a tweet. If it's bullshit, I get his responses. But if he didn't refute the everything on tape claim by Mars, that's what sticks out to me. I mean, what do you think about that, Jeff?
Yeah, it's, considering that Nikki hasn't said anything about it yet, other than the truth will come out and it'll be from us. We don't know when that time frame will take place. I'm guessing probably after they're done doing the, South America, European tour, or, the Japan, since it looks like they're heading Pacific as well. I think, it gets them more into the news cycle again because everyone's talking about it. It's just,
The thing could have been derailed really quickly if he would have just called Appice out and said, no, we don't track, okay, or we do a little bit, or the weather's bad, or my hand hurts, or once in a while. That happens in the business. But this also could have been settled right away if Mars would make a statement, if he would put something out there. Now, he's not that guy. He's not the Nikki Sixx. He's not the guy that's out there in the media, the face and all that. But if Carmine is his friend and he's not making a statement about it, that makes me question the validity of the whole situation as well. Is he worried about calling out his friend, saying, no, he didn't have permission, I didn't say that? Or is he just pulled away from the whole thing and doesn't give a fuck anymore?
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Yeah, it's without hearing anything yet from Mick, it's, like what you said, it adds to that validity of, okay, yeah, they are. Um, you know, again, I think just the band's not as young as what they used to be. And so sometimes you need that help. And especially when you've got video of, tracking or back tracks for Vince on vocals, and you've got, other bands, you've got the same thing where you've got video, fan footage of, where things aren't matching up the way how they should if they were playing live.
Right. And that's a great preview because we do have some of those clips that you want to stick around for that provides some evidence, question mark, maybe help people make a decision if what Mars was saying is spot on. But here are some celebrity replies to Nikki Sixx's tweet blasting Carmine Appice. In defense of Appice, Rat frontman Stephen Pearcy tweeted, "You've got that, brother. That was uncalled for, and I'd like to be the first to say it like it is. Hey, Nikki," and then he threw in a bunch of hashtags. Hashtag lowbrow, respect, legend, Carmine Appice, and on and on and on. Meet the Press was one of them. Nephew of the late great bassist Jaco Pastorius, Pat Travers Band bass player David Pastorius tweeted, "Carmine Appice, you are one of the greats, man." Here's just a few fan responses to Sixx's tweet to Appice. "At least Carmine plays live. As a bassist myself, you're not even close to playing the tracks. Should we go on about Vince's backing vocal tracks? Man up." Carmine did. This next one says, "Appice isn't the one pretending to play live. You are. How are the backing tracks, Nikki? You and the current version of Crüe are frauds." This one says, "This guy talking about a musician who is way more respected for his craft is amusing. Nikki doesn't even plug in his instrument. Mötley Crüe is not a live band. It's obvious to anyone who has seen them. Worst mix I have ever heard, borderline unprofessional. Nothing like a has-been fake bass player calling out another musician. Notice he didn't deny. I've seen him live, no surprise regarding backing tapes. I think you're confusing washed up with legend. Why don't you actually plug in your bass and play? I know for you that would be a first." This one says, "I love Mötley Crüe, but calling Carmine Appice a washed-up drummer is not a good take. His skill and ability are unquestionable." I can't argue with the fan and celebrity support of Carmine's unquestionable contribution to the rock world. I mean, he has got a pedigree since the late 60s. Are you in any disagreement about Carmine and his skill set and what he's contributed to the rock world?
No, he's one of the best. I would definitely put him in a top 10 at the very least. And just, he's influenced probably a lot of the drummers from the 80s and 90s and even today still,
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. He is, in my opinion, one of the best. From Vanilla Fudge is where I first heard him. He's played with Beck, he's played with Ozzy, he's played with Rod Stewart, and he has these clinics he does, just masterful. In addition to his tweet in support of Carmine Appice that you saw earlier, here's a quick video where Stephen Pearcy pretty much calls out Mötley Crüe. He calls him guilty, really, for using pre-recorded tracks.
Auto-tune lip sync. What's your opinion on singers who lip sync? Ooh, good one. My opinion, well, there's artists who need that. I think it's bullshit, really. And my peers are doing that shit. And it's you know, I love my guys Mötley, but when that shit's everywhere on stage and your bass is piped in, that kind of stuff kind of ekes me, but it's not my gig. Yeah, I'm old school, love the real shit, but you know, it is what it is. But excuse me, if you're that weak, then I don't know. Yourself.
Jeff, these hair metal bands spend a lot of time chewing the same dirt. Keeping that in mind, I really think Pearcy's statement has some credibility. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, they've all gone through the same thing. You know, trying to go from, you know, the backyards and the clubs to the arenas, and, you know, some now back to the clubs, or you got the stadiums. And, you know, people want to go and see live music. You know, they don't want the backing tracks for it. And, you know, you got to give kudos to the bands that are still out there doing the live. And for some of the bands that want to do the backing, maybe you don't need to be going out on tour,
Right.
you know, for the time being, until you can get everything back to where it was.
I think that Stephen Pearcy can speak. I mean, he's definitely one to speak on the subject. That guy still sings vocals. He doesn't believe in backing tracks. He said that over and over again. He's going to sing until he can't sing anymore. So he's been very vocal on this situation. He's been vocal in others as well. Regina Benelli, Frankie's wife from Quiet Riot, came out and said something about how Nikki's a piece of shit because he did this he did. No, wait, no. She came out and said Carmine was a piece of shit because he came out before Frankie got really sick with cancer and told everybody that Frankie ripped off his drum sound for the Mental Health album. It was his drum sound that he ripped off. And he can prove it because he went into the studio and they had the same build out that Carmine Appice uses, with the same plywood they use, the same acoustics, the direction of the drums, the same mics, everything. And Frankie agreed with, he said that Frankie agreed with him at the time that, hey, yeah, and thanks for that, because it, you know, it made us millionaires because of this album, you know. But then when he came out with that story afterwards, Frankie got pissed, his wife got pissed, they called him a fraud and a liar and all that, it wasn't true, and now she's condemning him because of that. So I'm wondering, is he just kind of a guy that just, a New York guy that just talks? This is what I was told, so this is what it is, whatever? Or is he trying to grab some headline? What is this guy doing, you know? Who knows if it's true? His wife has just come out just guns a-blazing after this happened. Said, you know, basically, yeah, no, Carmine he needs to keep his mouth shut. You know, he's telling untruths. And again, Frankie's gone, so he can't dispel that. Was she there? Is it something that he told her? And now he's doing it again from Regina's point of view about, you know, what Mick Mars said. If Mick would just come out and say, you know, I said that. I didn't mean for it to come out. Sorry, guys. You know, I'm not in the band anymore. I shouldn't have said that, but it's the way I feel. You know, they'll grab headlines with that. Or, like I said, is he holding back to protect Carmine, his friend, his lifelong friend? They've been friends for decades. So I think that's the only way that this thing's going to get put to bed, is if Mick makes a statement. Because certainly Tommy or Nikki aren't going to come out and say, yeah, I don't plug in my bass. No, yeah, I mic my drums, but they're not on. You know, and as you're going to see from the video here, you'll see that, I think it was the beginning of the stadium tour, Tommy Lee missing the count in for the song that kicked off their show.
Yeah.
That's some big evidence right there. Some people say, well, some bands do that. They come in with that as the cue. And I'm kind of like, wow, why would they do that? Why would they perfectly tune the cue in with his first snare and hi-hat strike that he makes or whatever, you know?
Right.
That seems like a lot of extra work when it's like, hey, you know, when I'm ready to go, guys, there you all are. Everybody's ready to go. Bang, 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 and we're gone. That's the classic way you always do it. So
Yeah. At least if you've got a guitar entrance, the lights can still be down or dim. Guitars kick in, and you don't know if they're actually playing off stage when they come out to main stage, or if it's tracked until they actually get out front and they start playing.
right.
So, but yeah, with that drum solo or that, the drum entrance, he's still trying to climb in a seat when it's going on,
Right.
as it's being played, and it's like, yeah, that's
Hokey.
very.
Yeah, and it looked like he was having a snare problem, like they were replacing a snare or a mic on the snare or something like that. We get the whole technical thing, but boy, that certainly outed him, and that's a hell of a teaser. This is what we're talking about here. Here's a couple of Mötley Crüe videos to show you that will offer credible evidence to Mick Mars' comments regarding Crüe using pre-recorded tracks on the stadium tour. Check it out. Folks, if you attended one of Mötley Crüe's stadium tour shows last year, did you get the impression that the performances were on tape? What are your thoughts on Nikki Sixx commenting about Carmine Appice? Comment below. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. Guys, if you're looking for some advice on harnessing your manhood mojo, send me a message at boulderzone.com. That's boulderzone.com. Or leave a message at 830-206-8282, and I will get back to you in short order. Ladies, I'm all about answering your questions about the masculine mindset too. I'm sure it will help you better understand dating and relationships. Jeffrey, thanks for coming on the show again. Good to see you, buddy.
Same here.
Folks, if you're a subscriber and you have an interesting story or questions about the manosphere and would like to be on the show, just like Jeff was, drop me a line right there at the Boulder Zone, the phone number, and we'll get you on too. So, until next time.
You know what to do. Get bolder.